And Adam's on silent, and I need to turn his camera on.
I am here.
There he is. Hi, Adam.
Hello, thanks for joining us. We do not have a quorum, but I think we can go ahead and go over, and you guys can ask whatever questions you have, so that we can go over the information. It's just kind of a review. We've had our first fiscal year where we received use tax money. And I am going to go ahead and share my screen because I have the agenda packet, and that way if anybody is watching online, they could kind of review what you guys are looking at. So the first report, we won't actually call the meeting to order because we don't have a quorum, but we'll just start talking about the reports.
Okay.
So first is our fiscal year 2023. Oh, Adam is here, so we could actually call the meeting to order. Great, we have a quorum, welcome.
How you doing? I could be the.
That means you have to sit in the.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're the head dog now.
Adam, I have a whole packet printed out if you would like it. You don't,
I've printed out and I've read most of it.
okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. And then we also have, we have one member on Zoom.
Okay.
It's Adam Musto. So you're sitting in the middle. Go ahead and call the meeting to order.
The hot chair, really?
Yeah, you're in the chair.
You walked in, you're our quorum, just go for it.
All right, let's call the meeting to order.
Great.
Can I?
You
Can I?
can.
Sure.
Awesome.
That
I'm
is,
gonna tell your children.
that is a bucket list item right there.
There you go.
For sure.
Scratch that off.
Yeah.
You didn't know if you walked in a few
No
seconds
idea.
after that you got to do that.
And even tardy and all, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so we were gonna start with the fiscal year 2023 use tax revenues and expenditure report. So if you will turn to page 4 in your packet, and I have them on the screen as well if you wanna look at that. But we had budgeted almost $3 million of revenues. $600,000 of that was going to be from use tax, and $2,350,000 was going to be from bond proceeds. Our use tax proceeds actually came in over and above what we anticipated for a partial year by almost $137,000. So that's great. I do want to let you guys know that use tax is it's not like sales tax. So sales tax is pretty predictable. You can count on it. Use tax is kind of becoming more predictable just because a lot of people are doing more online shopping, but use tax can be really volatile because if you are having a large construction project happening in your city, within city limits, all those building supplies that are coming in are typically subject to use tax. So whenever you're having a lot of construction projects, your use tax, you might have a year that is really big, and you don't necessarily want to be using one-time money on operating expenses. It would be better to use them on a one-time expense, if that makes sense. And so sometimes our use tax money, after we have several years of data, we'll feel more comfortable what is coming from those online sales and are kind of regular and steady versus something that's gonna happen, just because we have a big project and a lot of building materials, big construction supplies coming into our community, if that makes sense.
So you don't really get a breakdown as far as that revenue, how much would have been vehicle sales or anything like that?
So the vehicle sales part isn't in the use tax dollars. Because use tax got passed, we were able to continue receiving sales tax on those motor vehicle
Okay.
sales. So this is simply
So
use
this is
tax.
strictly, okay,
Those motor vehicle sales are all coming into sales tax and are included in the city's sales tax revenues.
okay.
But had this use tax not been approved by voters, that would have stopped. And sales tax receipts would have been impacted negatively. And so for the expenditures, the projects that were budgeted in fiscal year 2023, there was a new sidewalk construction. Most of this new sidewalk construction, you can see $150,000 was budgeted. We only spent about $122,000. Most of that was for the Dogwood sidewalk project. There is a small amount, the city expended some money for the 33 connector trail. And so a small portion of this money has to do with us paying some engineering costs to get that grant application submitted to do a future project that is going to be funded with use tax.
Can I ask a question there, Sheila?
Of course,
Route 33 Trail Project, that's what you're talking about right now.
yes.
I don't remember that initially. Was that part of the sidewalk that was, I don't remember that. I went back to try to find that, and I couldn't find anything that said Route 33 Trail Project in this cost.
It may be McWhorter Park Connector. Does
Okay, is
ring a
that what
bell?
it's under?
Same thing.
That sounds familiar, but this Route 33 doesn't.
It's
So
two
Mac-
different, yes,
Same
it's
thing.
known as many different names. It has a
Okay.
lot of aliases. Which is not very helpful because it's.
No, it
confusing.
isn't. Trying to keep track of who's on first.
A DBA.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, also known as, okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And then the pickleball complex, that, obviously, we're getting close to completion.
Mhm.
Through March 31st, we had expended $1.4 million. And the anticipation was that it was going to be a $1.9-ish million project, and it actually is going to end up being a little bit more than that.
Oh,
What wasn't included in those budgeted numbers were the engineering and design costs. And that is just an accounting change. Whenever you capitalize an asset, you should be including all of the costs, construction plus engineering and design, so you can see what the total project cost is. And so there's just a change with how it was budgeted last year and how we're going to be budgeting going forward. But the $1.9 million that was in the budget last year did not include the engineering and design costs, if that makes sense. We have not spent any money yet on Hall Park. And so even though there was $500,000 in last year's budget, we actually spent $0. Then there was $150,000 that was budgeted for 2 police officer positions. At the very end of the year, we finally got to the level where we hired 1 of the 2 police officer positions. And so there was just a very small amount of money expended from that line item for an officer. And then we also had money budgeted for an animal control officer. And we were able to hire somebody. And so you can see there's a little bit of money at the end of the year that we expended for that animal control officer. And then we spent $44,000 on debt service expenses for the pickleball financing. So we ended up, having $1.1 million of revenues over expenditure, and all of that money will be used for projects in the following year, if that makes sense. And we'll talk about that in more detail when we get to the budget for next year.
Question on, so when we are talking about the pickleball court coming in a little bit over estimate, do we know by chance what that variance is gonna be?
Yeah, and I'll talk,
Okay,
I have
perfect.
on here, did I write it? I think I wrote the anticipated total cost for each of the projects on the agenda.
Gotcha.
And I think I'm going to go back to the agenda because that's where I have that information.
Yep, I
So,
see it now.
So any questions about the revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 2023? And if not, then we can go into, so I didn't pay a ton of attention, but I've been trying to catch myself up of what the city promised that we are gonna use those use tax dollars on. And so I wanted to make sure that I was listing out all the projects,
Mhm.
and so that you guys could have that information. So basically, I broke out the projects in operating costs, like ongoing costs that are not ever going to go away unless we lay somebody off or eliminate a position, and then capital costs, so those one-time, one-and-done costs. So the operating costs, the use of the funds, personnel costs for the 2 police officers and an animal control officer. 2 police officers is about $175,000 a year this year, and that will grow each year as you know, health insurance becomes more expensive, employees get raises, things like that. And an animal control officer, which is about $80,000 a year. Just so you guys kind of know, you know, we already have almost $300,000 every year of use tax money that's all going to be going to salaries and benefits. I think that's really important to know. And then we also have the debt service on that pickleball debt. So this year, we only have it in fiscal year 2024, the current year that we're in now, it's going to be about $100,000, but it's around $185,000 in all the years following, if that makes sense. And that is going to go all the way through 2037. And I put on page 5, kind of just the principal and interest payments that are gonna be made, the amortization schedule, if you guys wanted to see that. And then there's administrative costs. So this year, we made a change in the budget, and obviously, City Hall is paying a lot of employees to do the accounting. We pay legal services out of those funds. All of the funds, the City Hall budget is supporting all those funds. If we only had a use tax fund, they would be hiring their own accountant. They would have to go through their own audit. They would have to have their own attorney fees. What we're doing is we are reimbursing the general fund for these costs so that we can afford to do all these services and support all of the other funds. And so that's kind of new this year, and we'll talk about that in the budget, but there are ongoing administrative costs. And how we calculated that, it's really a percentage of the revenues. As revenues are coming in, there are a lot of, for example, with the pickleball courts, there's a lot of different things that we're having to work on with debt. We're having to write a lot of bills or pay a lot of checks, not payroll in this fund, because that's being paid out of the general fund, and this fund is reimbursing the general fund, but things like that. And it's new this year, so if you guys have questions, feel free to ask.
When you reimburse this from the use tax to the general fund, what's the paper trail that shows me that money is coming and where it's being used? How is it a line item that you're showing?
Mm-hmm. It is, it's a
Okay.
line item,
Okay,
yes.
That's the only question I had, how you keep track of it.
So right now, we're setting the budget, sorry.
No problem, go right ahead.
So right now, we're setting the budget for, I think for the administrative cost was estimated at, what was it, like 30, was it 36?
Yes,
So, and then-
$36,000.
It could be more or less throughout the year, but that's just, do we have a firm calculation on how we got to that, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So basically, it's about 5% of revenues.
okay,
So if a fund doesn't have payroll expenses and other things, like the park fund, the wastewater fund, the water fund, and the, there's one more fund, the transportation fund, they all have, theirs is about 15%, because there's you're adding payroll, in addition to all of these other services that the city's providing, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So those are the operating costs, and then the capital costs that, that we are looking at this year are finishing up the pickleballs, skate park complex. So far, we have, the board has committed by signing contracts for $2,149,000 of construction contracts. So that's how I know we're gonna be over the 1.9, and that includes the engineering and design contracts. So that's how I already know that we're gonna end up spending more money than we had thought. And then there are some other costs that are going to be paid that aren't through contract. Like, for example, we went and bought trash cans. We went and bought bleachers that were not included in a contract. We just made an order and purchased them. And so those expenses are about $50,000 by the time we're done. So I know that the estimated total cost is gonna be about $2.2 million. It probably, so I'm pretty conservative, so I definitely rounded up on that. But we already know that we have $2,150,000 of contracts that we're absolutely gonna make, so. And then we financed $1.9 million of that, and we're paying with current use tax for the rest of it, if that makes sense. Any questions about the pickleball and skate complex?
I have one question. I brought it up at one of the previous meetings, but I know that there's an agreement with the school because it's technically the school property, or it was the school property.
Yes.
Has that all been voted on by the school board to transfer ownership and everything?
Yeah, so before we did the financing, we already had that all worked out.
And I assume that had to be the case, but I just know as of our last meeting, it was still an object to be voted on, so I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, so we have title, it's been transferred to us, and all of that is the I's dotted, T's crossed. And just kind of, we just found out today, so you guys are really the first people to know, even though I did send the board emails and letting them know. This project, the pickleball and skate park project, won the MML Missouri Municipal League Innovation Award this year.
Cool.
So for
Awesome.
a medium city size, which is from 5,000 to 15,000. So in our state, this project won an award, so that's pretty cool.
Cool, that is really neat.
And that will be presented on September 12th. So when it actually formally gets presented, like with pictures and stuff, I'll do a Facebook post.
It's great.
Something to be proud of. Then we have the Hall Park project. Again, we haven't spent any money on this project yet. We're anticipating that it's gonna be $1,004,600, but we have requested $500,000 of grant money. We expect to find out in July whether or not we're successful about that. If we're not, we're gonna have to figure out where are we gonna come up with the money, or do we postpone the project? And the board would have to make that decision. But that is a 50-50 grant match. So typically you have 80-20 grant matches where they'll do 80% and the city is responsible for the other 20. In this grant case, it's 50-50. So we only get the money if we pay for our, they'll match. That makes sense, up to a certain amount. Any questions about Hall Park?
So now that the pickleball court, you know how I am passionate about this. Are we going to move forward once your pickleball court is completed, it's done? Do we start on Hall Park, or do we wait till July when we know we did or did not? When does the start happen with Hall Park? When do we see something actually happening?
We're gonna wait and see what happens with that grant.
Okay.
Because if we don't have money, if we don't get that grant money, we don't want to start a project and have it just undone and just sitting there forever. Like, maybe there's a better use for the funds while we're trying to figure out, do we apply again in a future year?
Well, let me back up just a minute. There's better use for the funds. So you're telling me that 500,000 is not just gonna sit there and wait for Hall Park. You're gonna use it for something else in the meantime.
Well, if the board so chooses. I don't get to make that decision.
And which board are we talking about?
The Board of Aldermen.
That's what I thought you were
Yes.
talking about.
Yes. Yeah, maybe they say, well, we can't do this park right now, we gotta figure out this financing, and so we're gonna use this money for these sidewalks or something like that. Or maybe they say, you know what, let's just try again, we have the match, let's keep the match here and see if we can win in the next round. They get to decide which way they think's best.
Well, that doesn't make me very happy.
Well, I don't know what they're doing.
That doesn't make me
Don't be
very.
mad at about a decision
I-
that they
I'm-
haven't even made.
I understand, but I'm still not happy to hear that that money won't be sitting there ready, waiting for the moment we can start on Hall Park. It could be out here somewhere and say, oh, we can't start on the park because that money's over here now.
But they won't make that decision until July,
They won't make that decision.
Right.
until-
Well,
until we know
Right.
whether or not.
Right.
it's-
And
I
that money's
understand
not here yet anyway, right?
Correct.
With what we've collected, so I mean, it's not,
I understand
Yeah.
that, I understand that, but I want it to be documented that I'm not happy to hear that. I still am not
Well,
happy
be
about it.
mad at me because I just
I'm
kind
not
of made
mad
that
at, I'm
up.
not mad at anyone, I'm
To
just
tell
telling
you
you,
what could
I'm not
happen.
happy
It
about
was
hearing
fantasy
that.
world.
I'm not happy to hear that.
Fair enough.
Okay,
I will say this, though, it doesn't look, based on the, not to jump forward, but Mary, just to put you at ease a little bit, based on the budget that they're proposing here, I don't see anything where they would put that money at risk per se.
oh,
And
I'm not
assuming
worried
that
about
would-
it being at
That would
risk,
have to be a
no.
large development that would be outside of the scope of the current budget that they're currently proposing, so. Because right now, based on what I see, they actually have it in there for Hall Park, and if they
Mhm.
did, I would assume they would probably, hopefully make us aware that they were wanting to change that, so. And then hopefully we could have a discussion and know what Board of Aldermen meeting to come to
Right,
voice our concerns.
Yes,
point taken.
yes, and know that I just was giving you a scenario that could happen. It doesn't, don't be
And I'm
mad at
just giving you
anyone
my
for.
feelings.
I love that. So be mad at me, not at them, because they didn't
Let there
actually make a
be-
decision
Let there
yet.
be no doubt.
No, I'm extremely supportive, because I feel like that's our entire goal as the use tax, oversight steering committee was, the tax was passed with Hall Park, all of these, projects in mind, so a deviation from that would, obviously kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say shake public trust, but I mean, it is, I
Exactly,
feel like
because
the
they'll
point
come
of our
back and,
job is to hopefully keep,
they'll come back and ask me, I
Alderman
thought you
and-
said we
and
were
line.
gonna have a park.
yeah.
And now I hear it's postponed again. Yeah.
That's a really good,
And I don't wanna have them come in and
Yeah.
say, well, we're not a priority anymore because we're old. That's the first thing that comes up. They
yeah,
don't forget about us.
yeah.
So
We're not forgetting, we're just trying to be good
That's-
stewards of taxpayer
that's what I wanna go
dollars.
back and tell them.
Awesome. Okay, and then the last project that we have kind of on the radar is the Mac Porter Connector or Route 33 Trail project.
Yes,
That one, so we have anticipated engineering and design project costs of $267,700. When the board approved this budget, we didn't have all that money. But because we received more money than we anticipated we were gonna have from use tax, that was included in last year's budget. When they do the reappropriation to true up for cash carryover and the results at the end of the year, the city will have all the money to do the engineering and design costs. And that's really good. And the reason that it's really good is because the city has applied for and been awarded grant funds for this project. It's $850,000 to that's the estimated cost to construct this trail connector. And it's an 80-20 match, so the state is going to give us, or through MARC, Mid-America Regional Council, $680,000, and the city needs to come up with $170,000. And we actually have 2 years to come up with that money, but we also needed to be able to fund all the engineering and design costs. So I was a little bit stressed about that, and I am not as of today. So that is really good. So,
Can I comment on the years? So that grant money that we got is fiscal year 2026 money. So that will become available at the latter half of 2025, so we have roughly 2 years to
To get the
get
match?
the engineer, no, we'll have
you
a
might.
match, it's
Okay.
there, but we have 2 years to get the engineering done.
The match is not there yet. The engineering to design is, yeah.
Right, so
Okay.
what I'm saying is it's a 2-year wait, it's 2 years out, it's not something that we're gonna design now and we're gonna build it next year. The money from Mark won't be there until,
2026.
yeah, fiscal 26, yeah.
So that's a done deal, and we're spending engineering and design project costs down in anticipation.
Yes.
And-
Is there, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and so, but the match is not a given yet, is that how I understand?
Yes, I have not, the city does not have it in our hot hands yet, but I think that we will have it in 2 years, by 2 years. So the city's total cost for this project, like, we're getting $680,000 given to us, and we're gonna spend 437,000, or, yeah, 437,700. What a great deal to have a wonderful, awesome amenity in our community.
So if we do the engineering design now, what is the, I guess, risk between now and the time that the funds become available, that there's gonna be scope change and cost change, I guess?
Good question, yeah.
I mean, there is gonna be some inflation, but the engineers should be already factoring that into their cost. And then we bid the project and who knows what it's actually gonna be bid at. It's all estimates until we actually go out for bid.
I was just worried we spend the engineering fees and then we don't, the city for some reason decides, oh, we're not gonna match that.
Yeah, so
We
we
don't have the funds.
can't. So we already accepted the grant and it looks really bad and makes our chances of being able to receive future grants.
So even though
So-
technically you haven't, it's,
We've already committed to
Okay,
it,
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
we have to come up with the money, we can't
Okay.
change our mind. That's not real.
Good
We
question.
could
Thank
change
you.
our mind, but
Yeah.
it gives cities that decommit grant funds a very black eye, and it impacts all future, the process for future. So
good to know.
we would do everything we could not to do that.
Okay.
I have seen it done before.
Right, David?
Not by us.
Cool, great.
Yes,
Great question, great question.
yes.
And so, Adam, I feel like I'm ignoring you on Zoom.
Did he fall asleep?
No, he's
still?
watching, but
There you moved.
he's watching.
So all in, just to reiterate, all in cost for the trail project would be probably like roughly 1.2 million total?
Yes, and our portion, about $500,000.
Yeah.
Let 437,
Yep,
but
yep.
maybe it could be more than that. Yeah. So honestly, the last thing that I really have to go over, if you guys don't have any questions about the capital costs, is the use tax fund budget for this current fiscal year. Again, I feel like I keep telling everybody, yes, I changed that. So I want to kind of explain how the budget is set up. If you look at page 50 of your packet, so almost all the way to the end. So I'm really big about keeping all the project costs for something in one place so we can know how much the project actually costs, instead of tucking a little bit in this fund and then tucking a little bit in that fund, so you have to go look for it. And so I created this year some capital project funds. So you will see I'm estimating, and I think I estimated low, that we're gonna get, the board approved this, $720,000 of use tax money all of next year. I don't know if you guys remember, but I believe that, that we exceeded that. So they approved this budget in February, and we hadn't had the results from the end of the year. So my use tax revenue might be a little bit light, and that's okay.
Well, that's technically over 10 months anyway, right? Because we didn't start actually collecting
Right.
until
Right.
June or whatever, so.
Right.
Correct.
That's,
So I'm probably pretty low, and I guess there's not a ton wrong with that. So, and then for, so you can see our expenditures. So we have the operating, the administrative costs, that's the $36,000. And then you can see the sidewalks and trails. I have a budget transfer to the sidewalk and trail. It says C, that means construction fund of $199,740. If you look at these last two digits next to transfer to sidewalk and trail, it's 53. That tells me that it's Fund 53, which is on your next page. And you can see that I have revenues coming in from the use tax fund on that next page of $199,740. That's bringing that money from the use tax fund. And then I'm showing that I have engineering and design costs of $199,740. If you look at the number just to the left of it, the 267.7, that's the total amount that it's going to cost us to pay for all those engineering and design costs. And I didn't think I was going to be able to fund it all, but they will be amending the budget at the next meeting for that cash carryover true up, and this.
So our
budget will be
199 number will come to the 267 is what you're saying, okay.
Yes. So this is the method of my madness so that we can have each project, so I can have everything that we spend for the Route 33 trail project in one place. So it's just easier for record keeping and for accounting wise. Then if we go back to the use tax budget, you can see that we have public safety money. This is, and it's a transfer to the general fund. So last year they used a 05 number. It's the exact same for the account number. Again, I'm trying to make it easy so we can trace this money, so that I changed it to 56110. I don't know if you guys see that under public safety. I did that because 10 is the fund number for general fund. And I wanted to be able to go to the budget and track that to say, okay, this became a revenue in another fund. Does that make sense to you guys? Like, I'm just kind of trying to lay things out so that we can easily follow trails. And maybe I made it more confusing for some people, but I made it good for me. So you can see that we had hoped that we would do a bigger raise this year. So you can see the department request for public safety money is $185,075. And then they actually ended up only adopting $174,332, if that makes sense. I did not give you guys a copy of the general fund budget because it's multiple pages, but you would be able to see a revenue transfer from use tax. That was the total of the public safety amount for police officers, 2 police officers, salary and benefits, and then 1 animal control officer, the $76,526 salary and benefits, if that makes sense. Oh, I totally skipped over the park capital projects. And then we have the pickleball or the Hall Park cost, the $504,600. I have that being transferred to a park construction fund. And that's the very last page of your packet. And you can see I have $504,600. It's being married with the grant. They also have revenue of $79,500 coming from the CID for the pool project. And you can see how we're spending it down below in expenditure. So Hall Park is budgeted for $1,004,600, and then the $79,500 for the public input project for the pool, which is not being paid with use tax money. It's being paid with this CID money, if that makes sense. Okay, that was a lot of information, and I would love to answer any of your questions.
The ongoing cost for the pickleball courts, so I know I see the debt service. Are we assuming that the remainder of the bond proceeds is the reason why we don't have necessarily a budget figure in there for expenditures, because we're just assuming that's a net neutral then?
Well, what I was thinking was that they were going great guns on that pickleball project.
Mhm.
court project. And I was like, I was way too optimistic and was like, oh, we're gonna be all done with this project way ahead of time. So we'll just do the carryover, so, we'll end up, the board will end up amending the budget.
Okay.
So we didn't know that 2 months ago when they adopted it,
Yeah.
but now we do, and they'll amend the budget, use some of that carryover to finish this pickleball project. The pickleball complex has already all been in this
Paid for.
fund, so it's already all in one place.
Mhm.
We didn't marry any, and the debt service money, the bond proceeds also were already in here. And so I'm not going to move it to a capital project because it's gonna be done, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
You guys have really good questions.
When will the board vote on the amended budget for the use tax? The Alderman?
Next meeting, May 15th is what the plan is.
Okay, and that'll be in the minutes, I'm assuming of their meeting, but would it be, could I be selfish and ask you to send us a copy of the amended budget once it's been approved by the Board of Aldermen?
Yeah, how, can I do it a little bit different? Can I add you to get the Board of Aldermen meeting agenda packets?
Yeah, that's fine
And
as
then
well.
you're gonna, I can add you one time, or I can keep you on it so you get all of them every time, whatever you prefer.
You can just add me, because it sounds to me like a lot of what they decide and vote on is gonna subsequently run through, and I know we don't meet as regularly as
Right.
they do, so instead of me pestering you every month or every week with questions, then I should just be able to, I'm assuming it'll be in there noting, like when they're going to use monies from the use tax fund and stuff, so.
Yeah, and how you'll see it, just so you know, is when they approve a contract.
Mhm.
So I left copy, like I gave you copies of that in this packet, so you guys could add them up and look at them. But yes, so you might see like, well, if they award a contract to somebody, they're going to vote on it, it's going to be in their packet, and you'll know.
Yeah.
And it will probably be pretty clear from you, even if you don't look at it in great detail, oh, this is gonna be use tax, they care about it. Maybe even do a Control F and just type in use. See if you can find it. Try to
I'm
make
assuming
it
you
easy.
you provide the financials at the meetings as well, so we would be able to tell from the fund balance and sheets.
Yes, yes. You're gonna have a lot more information though, you're gonna have all of it, and that's not a bad thing, right? Like,
Not at all.
you want more than just the use tax information.
Now that we finished the pickleball court, and that was on our agenda, and I know we still owe on that, and we'll still have use tax funds coming in, will we add something in its place to the agenda as far as projects that this board will look at,
So.
monitor?
In this year's budget, your use tax money is just trying to pay for these projects that are going on now.
Okay.
So eventually, when you end up being able to pay for the entire connector trail, since we've already committed to it,
Mhm.
after that, in future budget years, the board will be adding additional projects. And I believe that they have a whole list of priority sidewalks
Okay,
to
good.
Yeah, that
start.
was in that original
Good.
plan I remember, was a bunch of connectors, sidewalks.
Yes, I
stuff like
remember,
that.
I remember
In and
that,
of
yeah.
itself.
I've got
It's gonna
that
be a
map,
project.
you just let me know if you
That was
you
in our
need a
original
copy, I
packet,
can send it,
yeah.
it was in the original packet.
Right,
Yeah.
and I do have that in the original packet, that's why I just want to confirm that
Yeah.
that's
Yes.
where
Well, was it-
we're still going.
Was there also
Yes.
something related to the dog parks in there, or was it just the animal control officer? I can't remember.
I just remember the animal control officer and the vehicle for the animal control officer, but I don't remember
I
anything
think
for the dog
parks
park.
were already
No.
done by then.
I know they're gonna add some
Yeah, I think-
trees in the future, but I don't remember anything else that was
The
included.
dog park was done by then.
Well, speaking of vehicles, were you going to carry over the vehicle money? Because we did not spend it. For an animal control.
Right, they were
vehicle.
supposed to have a vehicle.
Well,
We got-
they do have one.
We got a hand-me-down from the PD is how we handled that.
And you're good with it?
Yeah, we're good with that.
Okay.
So this animal control officer doesn't have to physically pick up an animal, so to speak?
She
you know?
does. With
And
the
this vehicle
vehicle,
is, what does this vehicle look
It's an
like?
Explorer.
Okay.
An Explorer, it's got a crate in the bed, you know,
Okay.
in the back, it's enclosed.
Okay,
But that was a savings.
This opens the
technically,
doors,
too.
so you get in.
Yeah.
please.
Some of them are that friendly.
That's not what I envisioned, but okay. As long as she's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, what other questions do you have, any?
On the revenues, I think, is my last question is.
Yeah.
And just a thought is is potentially the reason why our revenues have done so well this year in any way related to the interchange project at all?
Yeah, well, no, because we're already tax exempt, but it is totally going to be attributable to Starbucks, to Arby's. Like, anytime we have things like that happening in our community.
Well, I was thinking
it's
about that
going to
because
generate more.
that stuff's going to wrap up this year, and so I know that
Yes.
we're assuming this is a conservative number, but if the number that we're basing it off of is obviously artificially inflated from a major project, that's the only reason I was wanting to
Yes.
make sure.
So it
Because I still
wouldn't-
think it's conservative based on the reports that Jim had provided at the beginning,
Yeah,
based on other municipalities and stuff, but yeah, I just want to make sure that,
yes.
because that could be a potential problem moving forward, because based on my math, it looks like every year we're going to be committed to roughly about $500,000 in just ongoing operation costs, so it doesn't give us a huge margin of growing the fund per se, or, you know, of taking on big new projects, so,
That's correct.
unless our use tax goes through the roof.
And here's something else to keep in mind. So if our sales tax amount, like, we have one sales tax that has a sunset on it. It's the sales tax that was approved by voters to help pay for the interchange. It's a 1% sales tax. If that sales tax sunsets, then that's going to impact use tax revenues. We can't really afford to add any more operating costs to use tax. They all need to be capital at this point until,
Right.
I completely concur with you. So the only other thing we need to do is set the next meeting date and time. So what are you guys thinking? Do you want to meet in 6 months again? Do you want to meet? I think you're required to meet twice a year, but you could meet more
What are you
than
guys'
that.
thoughts on quarterly? I'm just afraid that, you know, with
I
with
agree.
being 6 months or annually,
long.
that it might, yeah, we might not be able to keep up with,
Right.
with the pace, because I mean, the city in general is just flying, right? So that's the only reservation I had with everything.
Adam, you're-
Big-
Well, we can agree, we can vote on what we want to do, meet quarterly, semi-annually, annually. But I agree with, you know, to stay on top of this, what's
I don't
actually
think,
happening.
yeah, I think quarterly would work for,
Or 4 months, or, you know, to cognizant of everybody's time, but yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, as seamless as this is gone, I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
I
see
agree.
any issues with it. So, Sheila, thank you very much. by
Yeah.
the way.
Great job putting it all together. Thank you.
You're welcome. So August, September, what do you think?
I think probably August, right?
Okay.
Late August.
um,
I'm just trying to think here.
So I think school starts August 22nd. I don't know if any of you else, maybe
What if we
not
shot
very many people
for,
have school-age kids on this
The kids aren't even out of school yet, and you're already
Would
putting them
August
back in
be-
school.
They would not like you right now.
No, they would not, they would definitely not like
Or
that.
my wife, yeah,
Yeah.
fourth grade teacher.
would August the 8th work by chance? Because that would be well enough before school started. Because I also know like school starts on the 22nd, but school really starts way before that with all
Yeah.
the open houses and orientations and everything like that. So I didn't know, would August the 8th, that's a
Can I run
Tuesday.
and look at a calendar really quick? And Adam, if you want to say something, you're muted, so feel free to join in on what your thoughts are.
Probably talking is all the time.
I've never heard him so quiet.
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay in my lane. August 8th's good with me.
How you doing, Adam?
I'm good. I was excited to have a quorum of atoms also, so.
Right? Yes. Always good to see
Yeah,
you.
you get-
40%.
You guys, your all's questions were excellent.
Thanks.
So August 8th, we have court in this building. We could go downstairs and meet in the conference room. It's not ADA accessible, but we could go down there if everybody was okay with that, or we could just do via Zoom.
I mean, I'm fine with, that's where we actually met the first time, it was down in the basement, so. I'm
Okay.
fine with that, or, like I said, that was just a suggestion, there's also the 15th, or, I'm assuming it's a Tuesday is what works. And it doesn't have to be a Tuesday either, I was just looking. at
I'm
that.
flexible, it doesn't really matter, whichever majority wants. Larry, what's your agenda like? You got any
I'm pretty
dates?
flexible.
Based on
Okay,
your
good.
calendar, Sheila, what would be the most appropriate time for us?
I think August 8th is fine as long as you all are fine with going downstairs.
Yeah, I'm fine with
Nobody
that, the
has an
hybrid model and
accessibility.
everything, I think that,
Sure.
Okay,
as long as I can bring the chair down with me, these things are.
The gavel?
Pretty exciting.
How about the
Yeah, the gavel has to come as well.
I think the judge needs it
Oh,
that
yeah,
night.
okay, all right. I'll bring my own.
We won't say anything, I'll be like, where, I can't rule on anything.
Okay, well, I did put a spot for committee member comments, so if any of you have a comment about anything that's not on the agenda, please feel free to say it, and otherwise, you can make a motion to adjourn, and you can close the meeting if you get a first and a second.
Dean,
Yeah,
close
I
the
would
meeting.
definitely like to thank everyone for their hard work and everyone at the city.
Yeah, thank
So,
you guys so much.
With that being said. That's great. That was.
You pulled a KBC move right there.
Yeah, right.